A very good morning, students. So, this is our last lecture from our chapter number 4. As we know that we already discussed every single methods of contraception, then different sexually transmitted diseases in complete detail. So today we will talk about exclusively about the infertility. Different because this chapter is the chapter name is reproductive health, right? And there are many these days, there are situations, there are cases when a couple is having some problem related to the reproductive organ, right? Or there is some other case when couple is not able to have child. That time different technologies these days we are they are used by doctors to remove the infertility condition. So first we have to understand this word which is known as infertility. Infertility अगर इसको अलग अलग आप करो तो infertility, so inability of a couple to produce children even after 2 years of unprotected sexual intercourse. Means if a couple it is planning they are planning their family, they want to have a child, but even after 2 years of their unprotected sexual intercourse they are not able to have a child. That condition is known as infertility. Now many times students ask that what are the reasons. See bacha, there is not a single reason only that there is a problem in the reproductive tract or reproductive organs or reproductive internal areas, but the reason can be physical, the reason can be congenital, means by birth, it can be due to some drugs, or it can be immunological, it can be psychological also. So all these aspects, they all are the contributor factors for the infertility, right? So what is the solution then? How can a couple, he or she, they have a child? Then for infertile couples, there are different clinics these days, specialized clinics. They are known as infertility clinics. They first help in finding the problem. They diagnose that what is the problem, that why the couple is not able to have a child. And then if there is a specific disorder which can be treated, then corrective treatment of those disorders is given to the couples, right? And sometimes it happens actually bacho, that if sometimes that disorder or that condition is not possible, sometimes treat means that disorder is not possible to cure with the corrective treatment. So corrective treatment is when not possible, then couple could have children through a special techniques, and these techniques are known as assisted reproductive technology, right? So these techniques, they are known as ARTs, assisted reproductive technologies. So many couples, if their disorder is beyond the treatment, then they can have children through these special techniques. So let's look into complete detail of these ARTs. So what is the full form of ARTs? Assisted reproductive technologies, right? Now ARTs, when a couple goes for ARTs, when he tries for different techniques, first in female sometimes they have a obstructive fallopian tube, means there is some problem in the fallopian tube. And if there is some problem, there is some obstruction in the fallopian tube, ओवरीज प्रॉपर नॉर्मल फंक्शन कर रही हैं, एग प्रॉपरली प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है, बट फेलोपियन ट्यूब अगर करेक्ट नहीं है, उसमें कुछ डैमेज है, तो बच्चों फर्टिलाइजेशन तो फेलोपियन ट्यूब में ही होती है. सो फर्टिलाइजेशन विल नॉट हैपन. सो फर्टिलाइजेशन नहीं होगा तो डेफिनेटली प्रेगनेंसी विल नॉट happen, right? So that is one of the condition in cases. This is a very common case these days when females they have problem with their fallopian tube. Second reason is with the males, they can have oligospermia condition. Oligospermia condition होती है बच्चों जिसमें less sperm count produce होता है. Already we know that out of the millions only 100 they are able to reach to the fallopian tube. तो अगर already sperm count कम है तो there are very very less chances कि कोई भी fallopian tube तक पहुंच पाएगा. So couple those who face these kinds of problems, who face these kinds of conditions, they are helped with the help of ARTs, that is assisted reproductive technologies. Now, there are different assisted reproductive technologies which are very commonly used these days. First is the test tube baby. It is also known as in-vitro fertilization, but people used to think that this baby is produced in the test tube. We will discuss it in a minute. Test tube baby. Then gift, that is a gamete. G for gamete, I for intra, F for fallopian, T for transfer. Gamete, intra, fallopian, transfer. सारे के सारे वर्ड्स आपके रिप्रोडक्शन के साथ एसोसिएटेड हैं. गैमीट, इंट्रा, fallopian, transfer. AI is known as artificial insemination. Icsi, ICSI, intra, cytoplasmic, sperm injection. Again, intra, cytoplasmic, sperm injection. So one by one we will take these technologies. Now first is in vitro fertilization or test tube baby. Let's look into little history of this test tube baby. Actually it is known as a test tube, but actually the fertilization is does not happen in test tube but in any laboratory. This procedure is happening in a laboratory, right, in a very very sterile condition. And in a laboratory the most common apparatus is a test tube. That is why this name is given, that is the test tube baby. Otherwise this fertilization is done in the laboratory condition, in the outside conditions, but not in the test tube, right? So let's look into history first. First successful experiment, it was done by Dr. Petrucci, right? It was done by the Dr. Petrucci in 1959. And embryo that time when he proceeded with this experiment, the embryo which was formed after the fertilization of sperm and egg, embryo that was which survived only for 29 days. So definitely if embryo does not survive, the baby was not able to produce in 1959. But then world's first test tube baby, it was produced in 1978. And doctors which were there which paid their contribution, that is Dr. Strepto and Dr. R. Edward. And this test tube baby's name was लुइस जॉय ब्राउन. ये आप सबको पता होना चाहिए. व्हाट वाज द फर्स्ट टेस्ट ट्यूब बेबीज नेम? लुइस जॉय ब्राउन. The why the parents they go for this technology, test tube baby? Actually the problem was with mother had obstructive fallopian tube. That is why the doctor suggested them to go for the test tube baby, right? Go for the in vitro fertilization technique. Now India's first test tube baby, again it was also in 1978, and this was the baby's name was Kanupriya Agarwal. Commonly she was given the name Durga because बंगाल में दुर्गा की बहुत पूजा होती है. So basically that girl's name, they commonly they were given the name Durga, and her name was Kanupriya Agarwal. The doctor was who conducted this performed this experiment, he was Dr. Subhash Mukherjee. So this history should be known to each and every one of you. So now this, how this procedure is done. First, it is a in it is an in vitro fertilization technique. Means we are proceeding the fertilization in outside conditions, means outside the body. Outside the body means in the laboratory. So first is what is done, egg is taken out from the mother, right, and this egg is fertilized with the sperm from the father in the laboratory condition. Egg mother का ही होता है, sperm father का ही होता है, but because प्रॉब्लम फेलोपियन ट्यूब में है तो हमें फर्टिलाइजेशन बेसिकली करवानी है. सो फर्टिलाइजेशन वॉज डन इन विट्रो, मीन्स फर्टिलाइजेशन हैपन्स outside the body, but it is very very carefully maintained, the conditions same like the body. So it is usually done in a petri dish in the laboratory conditions. Zygote, now when they will fuse sperm, when you will fuse the sperm with egg, then what will be formed? Zygote will be formed. Now this zygote is allowed to divide in the petri dish, and then it is transferred into the uterus of mother, right? After basically a particular cell stage, this is transferred to uterus of mother. So fertilization कहाँ पे करवाई है हमने? Outside the body. That is why this technique is known as in vitro fertilization method. In vitro का मतलब ही होता है outside conditions. Now transfer of zygote, जब एक बार fertilization के बाद zygote बन गया, it can be done in two ways. One is with the ZIFT. ZIFT is zygote intra-fallopian transfer. ध्यान से सुनो, zygote intra-fallopian ट्रांसफ़र. आपने क्या बनाया है अभी? ज़ाइगोट. अब आफ्टर डिवीजन ऑफ ज़ाइगोट हम कहाँ पे डाल रहे हैं उसको? इट इज़ पुट बैक इन द फेलोपियन ट्यूब. दिस इज़ यूजली ज़ाइगोट इज़ कलेक्टेड विद द 8 सेल स्टेज. जब तक वो 8 सेल्स बन जाते हैं तब उसके बाद उसको फेलोपियन ट्यूब में ट्रांसफ़र करते हैं. नाउ समटाइम्स we use another method that is called IUT, intra-uterine transfer. इसमें हम फेलोपियन ट्यूब में ट्रांसफ़र नहीं करते. नाउ zygote is allowed to divide beyond 8 cell stage, क्योंकि वो हमें पता है कि जब भी zygote in natural body condition जो zygote डिवाइड करता है तो वो 32 सेल्स टू 64 सेल्स पे आके यूट्रस के साथ अटैच करता है. सो हम यहाँ पे क्या कर रहे हैं? वी आर डायरेक्टली पुटिंग द 32 सेल स्ट्रक्चर इनटू द यूट्रस. हम फेलोपियन ट्यूब में नहीं डालते, हम उसको और बाहर ही पेट्री डिश में डिवाइड कराते रहते हैं जब तक हमारे 32 सेल्स नहीं बन जाते, एंड देन वी ट्रांसफ़र इनटू द uterus. So complete development of embryo now, it takes place within the uterus of female. So that depends on the doctor as well as that depends on the condition of the female, that which kind of condition is the fallopian tube or uterus are having. These two technologies, these two processes, they are the choice. Either it is can be done through the fallopian zygote intra-fallopian transfer at the 8 cell stage, or at 32 cell stage. Usually they prefer intrauterine transfer. Now in sometimes doctors they use these techniques in oligospermia also, right? Female who received this embryo already, now because embryo बाहर बन रहा है तो डेफिनेटली बॉडी के अंदर तो है नेचुरल हार्मोन्स थोड़े प्रोड्यूस नहीं होते हैं. सो बॉडी ऑफ द फीमेल इज ट्रीटेड विद द हार्मोन्स from outside, so that the uterus of the female, it should be properly ready for the growth and the implantation. For successfully implantation, the hormones are given to the female. Now, next technique is gift. Gift is gamete, G for gamete, I for intra, F for fallopian, T for transfer. Normally, it is used for the female, those who are having at least one normal fallopian tube. एक ट्यूब तो नॉर्मल होनी ज़रूरी ही है इसमें, अदरवाइज देन वी गो फॉर अनदर टाइप ऑफ ARTs. Egg is transferred into the fallopian tube, तभी तो इसका नाम है गैमीट इंट्रा फेलोपियन ट्रांसफर. रट्टा लगाओगे तो कुछ नहीं समझ में आएगा. गैमीट कौन सा होता है फीमेल में? गैमीट इज एग. तो फेलोपियन ट्रांसफर, इसका मतलब एग में अगर गड़बड़ है तो एग पहुंच ही नहीं रहा है वहाँ पे. सो समटाइम्स क्या होता है कि या तो एग प्रॉपरली फॉर्म नहीं हुआ है, या कई बार बच्चों फिम्ब्रियाई they are not able to collect the egg, राइट. सो दैट टाइम ऐसे में क्या करते हैं कि ओवरी से एग कलेक्ट करते हैं एंड देन इट इज़ डायरेक्टली ट्रांसफर इनटू द फेलोपियन ट्यूब, राइट. सो दीज आर द टू रीज़न. या तो एग जो है वो फॉर्म होके फेलोपियन ट्यूब में नहीं पहुंच रहा है, या एग प्रॉपरली फॉर्म ही नहीं हो रहा है, या फिर फिम्ब्रियाई उसको कलेक्ट नहीं कर पा रहे हैं और वो फेलोपियन ट्यूब तक नहीं आ रहा है. सो व्हाट इज़ द टेक्निक विच वी यूज़? एग इज़ कलेक्टेड एंड ट्रांसफ़र इनटू द फेलोपियन ट्यूब, सो दैट नॉर्मली इसमें हम फर्टिलाइजेशन बाहर नहीं कराते हैं बच्चा, क्योंकि इसका नाम ही यही है, गैमीट इंट्रा फेलोपियन ट्रांसफ़र. तो इफ़ डॉक्टर चेक फॉर द फेलोपियन ट्यूब, अगर फेलोपियन ट्यूब एकदम हेल्दी है फीमेल की, एक भी अगर करेक्ट है, तो डॉक्टर यूजली प्रेफर दिस टेक्निक कि एग कलेक्ट करते हैं एंड ट्रांसफ़र इनटू द फेलोपियन ट्यूब, सो दैट other processes like fertilization, implantation, that takes place naturally into the body. This technique is sometime, yes, this is most important point. Sometime this technique is also used for those females who produce antibodies for the sperms in the vaginal secretion. In that case also we use this technique, which is known as gift. Then the next one is artificial insemination. अब इसके words देखो, artificial insemination, right. Insemination होता है depositing something. So if male has oligospermia, male is able to produce very less sperms. Sperm count in every ejaculation is very less. So what does a doctor prefer? The sperms, they are collected and artificially they are put into the vagina of the फीमेल. मतलब फादर से ही स्पर्म कलेक्ट करके उनको मदर की वेजाइना में डालते हैं. बट समटाइम्स द मदर्स वेजाइना is secreting sperm antibodies. Then doctors, they do not put it into vagina, they directly put it into the fallopian tube or uterus. So this अगर directly uterus में डालते हैं तो sometimes this is known as artificial uterine insemination, right. Usually prefer करते हैं to put into the fallopian tube, but this technique is also used for the proper fertilization and implantation. Sperms can be definitely from the husband, but if the husband's sperm count is very less, beyond the very minimum number, then sometimes sperms, they are taken from the donor also with the couple's consent. The last one which is used is these days, very commonly these days, in fertility clinic they are using this Icsi, Intra Cytoplasmic Sperm Injection, right. This is in Icsi, that is Intra Cytoplasmic Sperm Injection. Sperm is directly साइटोप्लाज्म है, सो जो स्पर्म है it is directly injected into the ovum to form the embryo. कई बार इसको हम लिखते हैं इंट्रासेलुलर साइटोप्लाज्मिक और स्पर्म इंजेक्शन. सेलुलर इसीलिए लिखते हैं बिकॉज जो ओवम का इन्वायरमेंट है, तो स्पर्म को डायरेक्टली इंजेक्ट कर देते हैं इनटू द ओवम, मतलब वेट ही नहीं करते हैं, डायरेक्टली ओवम में इंजेक्ट करके एम्ब्रियो फॉर्म कर लेते हैं. और क्योंकि श्योरिटी है, अब तो आपने ओवम के सेल, अब आप नेचुरली कहाँ वेट कर रहे हो कि ये फ्यूज़ करेगा स्पर्म इसके साथ आके, आपने डायरेक्टली इसके अंदर स्पर्म को डाल दिया. दैट विल डेफिनेटली दे विल फ्यूज, they will form the zygote and they will change into the embryo, and this is the most common these days technique used by the infertility conditions, right? Sperm is directly injected into the ovum to form the embryo, and once embryo is healthy, embryo is at the proper cell stage, then it is transferred to the uterus, and then the doctor it wait for the implantation. So these are the techniques of this chapter, right? These are the techniques, I should say, which are used these days for the couple who cannot deliver a baby through the natural method. So always technology is there to help, right? So go through this chapter very carefully, right? This is a very small chapter and a very easy chapter after the sexual reproduction, right? So we will meet you with the another topic.